And welcome back. We heard from a Democratic member of Congress on President Biden's speech. Now let's turn to a Republican. Joining me now on set is Republican Congressman Byron Donalds of Florida. Congressman, thank you so much for being here. It's
good to be with you.
Good to have you here. Thank you for staying up late.
Of course.
Let me get your reaction to President Biden's State of the Union address. The Democrats are obviously standing and applauding. Didn't see much standing and applauding on the Republican side. Not a surprise. But what did you make of the speech?
Well, it was highly partisan. And I think what the president was trying to do is rally his base, but he didn't talk about the conditions of the country. He didn't really bring solutions for the conditions and the crises in the country. He talked about things he wanted to do, but if you add up all of the laundry list, it would add another $1 trillion to our annual deficits on top of the $2 trillion annual deficits under Joe Biden. How are the American people supposed to pay for this? He talks inflation. Everything he wants to do is only going to create more of it.
You're talking about, for example, one of his proposals is actually to raise taxes on large corporations, on wealthy Americans, not touching taxes for anyone who makes $400,000. Why is that something that you disagree with? He says people who make more money should pay their fair share.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, that didn't apply to his son because his son evaded taxes. Number two, if you start raising corporate taxes in a time where inflation is still high, you're actually going to depress economic growth in our country, not increase it. And number three, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act that he referenced in his speech has raised more revenue for the federal treasury than at any other time in American history. It actually has brought in record revenue to the federal government. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem.
He makes the case that in many cases, millionaires and billionaires are paying a lower tax rate than teachers and people who are making a minimum wage. Let me play you what he said on Social Security and get your reaction on that.
Many of my friends on the other side of the aisle want to put Social Security on the chopping block. If anyone here tries to cut Social Security, Medicare, or raise the retirement age, I will stop you. We have two ways to go. Republicans can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. That's the proposal. Oh, no. You guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut? I kind of thought that's what your plan was. Well, that's good to hear. You're not going to cut another $2 trillion for the super wealth. That's good to hear.
What do you make of that?
A couple things. First of all, the president's gaslighting the American people. The Congressional Budget Office and OMB don't even agree with his numbers when it comes to tax policy that was written by Republicans, which has been successful for the country. But when it comes to Social Security, Republicans have brought no proposal about Social Security. But we do say that the CBO has said the program's go insolvent in 9 years. When they go insolvent, it will be a 22% benefit cut across the board for all seniors. So Congress does have to find a remedy to secure Social Security for the long run.
What would you support? Would you support raising the retirement age, for example? Or are you basically saying there do need to be reforms?
Look, I think there's a lot of proposals that members of Congress have been debating and talking about.
Yeah.
The first part is you have to have a serious conversation with the American people, not a political conversation, because the results of Social Security going insolvent are going to be disastrous for everyone.
Right. Well, there's no doubt that is a problem. The question is, what do you do about it? How do you keep it solvent? But let me ask you about what you heard tonight on the border. The fact that President Biden effectively tried to paint Congress as a do-nothing Congress. He said, look, we had a bipartisan deal. And then Donald Trump came and said, don't accept this deal unless it's a perfect deal. It was a deal that Senator Lindsey Graham had praised. It was a deal that didn't include a pathway to citizenship. Does he have a point on that?
No, he's wrong. And the reason why he's wrong is because when elements of that deal were being leaked out by somebody in the Senate, the Speaker of the House and House Republicans said that deal's dead on arrival in the House. You can finish negotiating it if you want to, but if the basic elements of allowing 5,000 illegal immigrants per day to come into the country before you take any measures to secure the border, that's a non-starter.
Just quickly, the deal would not have allowed 5,000 immigrants to come into the country illegally. It would have, at a certain point, once a certain number of migrants were being processed, would have allowed the border to be shut down. So they wouldn't have allowed them to just come in illegally.
Coming into the country, processed into the country, those are semantical phrases. But the reality is it's an overwhelming number for the American people. We can't do that.
The question, I guess, is why not do something? If this is such a crisis at the southern border, why wouldn't Republicans take this opportunity to do something, to pass this legislation? And just to follow up with you on that, is there any possibility of something getting done, or are we just too close to the election?
Well, a couple of things. First, House Republicans have done something. We're the only chamber that's passed a bill, H.R. 2. It is passed the House. The Senate refuses to even talk about it or debate it. So if we're going to talk about wanting to negotiate, maybe it's time for the White House to look at the House's proposal and start talking and negotiating from that perspective.
As you know, H.R. 2 is a non-starter in the Senate, and even Mexico said they won't work with you on it.
But the Senate bill was a non-starter in the House, so you can't have it both ways.
Let me ask you this just quickly before I let you go. I know that Speaker Johnson had encouraged you all to show decorum in the chamber tonight. There were some outbursts. How did you view this? Did you think there was enough decorum in the chamber tonight? How do you assess how your colleaades behaved?
Look, it was very hard for a lot of members to maintain decorum when the president just repeatedly lied about his own record. And when this speech was partisan, it was not designed to unite the country. It was not designed to actually talk about the State of the Union. It was designed to launch his presidential campaign. Members didn't want to sit there for that. And so you had some outbursts, yes.
And you didn't have a problem with that? With the outburst?
Listen, at this point, we just want solutions for the country, and that did not occur tonight.
All right. Congressman Byron Donalds, good to see you in person. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And still to come, divided government, Biden's reelection pitch, and the long, long road to a presidential rematch. Our political pros join us next. You're watching NBC News Now special State of the Union coverage.